Just checking to see what our attendance looks like. I see Craig Falcom, Tim Walrick, John Friedmeier, Jeff Sulla, Dean Moyer, and Brian Woodley. We have a complete component of our council. And so I will call to order the May 4th meeting of the Wabasha City Council, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I really am sorry for even a moment's delay. We have a very full agenda tonight. I'm going to minimize my Zoom here so I can tend to our agenda. Here we go. All right. I don't believe we have any guest speakers, but it's been a very busy month. I defer to city staff. Do we have anyone intending to give us any guest comments, Tyler or Caroline or others? Very good. I can see Tyler. He's my city of Wabasha, so I'll look for you, Tyler. If you need me to stop, just give me a sign.
Sounds good.
Do we have any public comments? For those who've not made any comment in the past, we just ask that you unmute yourself, which is the little red microphone on the lower left of your Zoom screen. You click that, it'll unmute you, and feel free to state your name and residence, place of residence for the record, and feel free to share comments with council. I'm not hearing any. All right. Okay.
Emily, it's Kay Jensen. My address is 224 East 3rd Street. And from last week, I can't remember who said that maybe the public is harder to get feedback from. So especially on Main Street, when you're identifying business opportunities on Main Street, there's a couple of organizations, of course, one that John heads up, but also Main Street that would be able to give feedback. So as a member of the public, I'm very interested in our city and making it thriving and beautiful. So I'm hoping that if we have a hard time, that we can brainstorm some ways to do it and use some existing committees.
You bet. Thank you, Kay, for representing that interest. I know we have Craig on our council, who's a liaison to the Main Street organization, and of course the Port Authority, represented by John and its members. We are looking forward to, I think Caroline, as our administrator, and I both hope to attend Main Street's next meeting, which is tomorrow, Cinco de Mayo. So I look forward to that, and also know that we share, the interest in engaging our business owners and citizens with regards to Main Street. And Caroline will have something to say about that when she overviews some of the block development grant opportunities that we need to consider as it relates to COVID relief. With that, do we have any changes or additions to the agenda? I know at least Dean and Craig had items they'd like to see added. Dean, you want to go first?
Well, I actually got a comment on 8.1, and
okay.
Then the item I want added is for the next council meeting.
Okay.
I would like a discussion on the Wabasha City Charter and start working on that so we can get that going and hopefully get to a vote in 2022 or 2024.
Okay, so you don't need any.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just was going to say, are you making a suggestion for that next agenda, or would you like some discussion on this month's agenda?
Let's put it on the next agenda.
Okay.
Yep. And then I'll just speak on 8.1 real quick. I'm in favor of this. I'm going to vote for it. But there are other individuals out there that can't or do not have the financial backing to open a business, a building in Wabasha. And I think we really need to look into another location for some more transient businesses like this, because there's quite a few out there.
So I'm referencing the current agenda that's posted to the internet, and it might be a little bit updated, Dean, because we've had some last minute additions. Is it 8.4 transient merchant permit? Is that the one you're
yes.
Okay.
Yes, for Cheryl Fitzgerald. I still have it as 8.1. So that's all I have.
Okay, all right. So you're comfortable with that remaining in the consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay. And Craig, I know you had an item you wanted added for discussion.
You're on mute, Craig.
Thank you. So I got a note that was added as item 10.5, and it talks about receiving the agendas earlier than the Thursday before the meeting. And so there's been some talk on that. I can wait to 10.5.
Okay, super. Sorry. Yeah, I do realize now that staff followed up on that. Okay, I'm just, for some reason, my agenda doesn't want to show me the whole thing here. All right.
Emily?
Yes, Tyler.
Staff wants to point out as well that there is a updated NEC attachment that was added to the meeting agenda tonight as well.
Okay.
It's the non-draft version. Apparently the original was a draft form, but the latest version has been uploaded.
Great.
Mayor, somebody sent me a message that HBC has no volume for the council meeting. I don't know if there's anything we can do, but.
Thanks for passing that on. I can't speak to the technical issues there. Is somebody in the city hall team able to contact them?
We had the same issue last month and they indicated it was their issue on their end. So I think they were supposed to come here and physically swap something out. I know Mid-Continent is fine from what I understand.
Okay, and we did not have issues with the recording, right?
No,
Okay. All right, well, we like to provide that live stream, but it might not be something that can be addressed immediately on that particular channel. Okay. Any other changes or additions to the agenda? I'm sorry, my agenda just will not scroll to the final items. I'll have to pull it up in a different format. We've got the addition of board commission appointments also on the consent agenda. Just wanted to draw that to council's attention. That wasn't there initially, but we've had some late breaking application and I'm very pleased about that. So you'll see consent agenda item 8.6 includes board and commission appointments to the Port Authority and the Park Board. Any other additions or changes?
Mayor, if I may,
Certainly.
with respect to the Port Authority appointment, do they have to be in-town residents? That's my only question.
Yes, I had Tyler look at that. No, they have to be a resident of the townships. So for instance, Amy was a township resident.
I'll make motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, we can go ahead and do that. I'll kick off a very short mayor's presentation afterwards. Do we have a motion or do we have a second to approve the consent agenda as updated?
I'll second.
I think that was Brian. We had a first from Dean and a second from Brian. Any further discussion? All right, we'll take a roll vote. Thanks for keeping us going. We have quite a bit to discuss
I
tonight.
have a question. Can you tell
Sure,
us
of course.
where to find the updated agenda?
It's always on the web. If you go right to the city's webpage, city government. City council.
I went there, but I didn't see that update, but I'll go again.
You bet. I'm struggling with my agenda tonight too, Craig. So if people need to reload that agenda, I don't know why it's giving me problems. It's just probably my technology on the other end, but. We have a motion and a second. We can have a roll vote.
Fuller,
Yes.
Moyer,
Yes.
Friedmeier,
Yes.
Falcom,
Yes.
Sella,
Yes.
Woodley,
Yes.
Duran.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I'm so eager. I'm so appreciative of this eagerness to get get this agenda rolling. I will say from a mayor's presentation standpoint, I'm not going to touch on any kind of local happenings, although there's a lot going on, but I just want to be mindful that we have quite a bit to discuss tonight. I really appreciate everybody seems very attentive and on task. We have a couple very important items which have had a substantial amount of update over the last 12 months. Most notably, probably in front of us is the draft NEC development agreement. We have with us guests who can speak to any questions that might be related to that. But I would just encourage everyone to just remain engaged. I know this Zoom format is really getting old. I'm really exhausted of it. And I really look forward to everybody being able to be together again this is our moment to, as we've committed, work as a partner with the National Eagle Center to see this project move forward. There are details that I know are worthy of discussion, and we're prepared to have that. So please, as you find yourself developing questions, or if you already have some, maybe jot those down so we can be efficient in addressing them. We've had a significant consultation with the attorney, Mike Flaherty, with regards to some technical issues. Our city engineer, Brian Mullen, has also taken a look at this and with a fine-tooth comb examined some of the language. We may find that we need Caroline as our administrator to, on our behalf, finesse some of the technical details, but I definitely want to make sure we're moving forward with a spirit of understanding of where this is taking us. And I will say from a timeline standpoint, you may remember the presentation by Randy Eggenberger and Meg Gamage Tucker with regards to the timeline of this project. The goal is to break ground in 2021. We are, as the city, we need to act in order to make sure that that can happen. The positive benefit for the public is kind of in our hands right now. The timeline may seem compressed to those who aren't really close to it, but I can tell you in just having consulted again recently in preparation for this meeting with Eagle Center leadership, there is a window of time in which construction can occur and not disrupt the operations of the Eagle Center. And while it's not our job to manage the Eagle Center's operations, I know Meg will attest to this, the status of whether the Eagle Center is open or closed really does make a difference in terms of visitorship, and it has an impact on our local businesses. So I want us to be paying attention, forthright with our questions, ready to take action so that we can move this forward and not remain a rate limiting step. I will also say with regards to that item that we should anticipate some further discussion related to the lease agreement and maybe a license agreement as referenced in the document. So we'll have that discussion at that time. But other than that, I just hope everybody ate their Wheaties. And if you don't have a strong cup of tea or something, you know, maybe somebody in your household can grab one for you. We'll move on. I'll let Caroline give us her, excuse me, I'll ask for any committee reports. I know it's been a busy month, and so I'll maybe start with the Port Authority. John, anything you'd like to have us aware of as we move into May?
The only thing is Brian Malm and his group will be looking at the U.S. DOT Maritime Administration. I've mentioned this before with respect to another infrastructure development program grant. We're reasonably contenders. We need to go do the legwork and spend the money to get the application in. We'll go from there with that. The chamber did a really nice job kind of walking us through their impression of the economic benefit and vitality of the Grandpa's Barn or the transfer building and what it does for them. That was enlightening. We formed a committee, and this is all in respect to the WRR, the Wabasha revitalization or riverfront revitalization, and that is, we developed a dock committee that includes city staff, both engineer and public works, as well as some Port Authority members or city administrator, to get that portion of it kind of solidified and going. I think that's about it for now.
Thank you, John. Brian, utilities, anything?
No, we got through the meeting quickly, just business as usual, nothing of note.
Very good. How about planning, Tim?
We didn't have an April meeting. We'll have a May meeting next week on the 11th, I believe it is, and we'll take up that discussion on the comp plan.
Very good. We look forward to that. And streets, Tony.
Sorry about that. We did not have a street commission meeting. Last park board meeting talked about a bench donation to Popcorn Park. We went over the transient merchant permit for the Popcorn Park, which is on the agenda tonight for you guys. Transient camping, we don't have any transient camping in the campground this year due to COVID, but it'll be back next year. We had a fence request in the campground that was denied, and boat slip. We had some discussion on some things there, but other than that, the only thing I have citywide cleanup is going to be May 29th, 8 a.m. to noon. That's the only one we could get, and we had to go with a different company because the other one was already booked up. So that's all I got.
Great. So that for the public's benefit, that's when there is the opportunity to have items that are typically difficult to recycle or get rid of
Yep.
for a fee, right? For a small fee.
Yep, air conditioners, refrigerators, computers, electronics, scrap metal, furniture.
Super. I have a printer coming your way. The pool, do you want to give us an update there? Just because I know there was an effort to, certainly have the pool open and an attempt to have swimming lessons, but it's a challenging year. Do you want to give us the current status?
Yeah, we only had two lifeguards come back from 2 years ago. So that puts us in a bind with swimming lessons. And as staff, we don't feel that training a whole crew of new people in and then having them train swimming lessons is very safe. So we've done some checking on that, and then we're not gonna have swimming lessons this year, but we do have enough staff to get the pool open. We're still working, I believe it's 50% capacity due to COVID restrictions, so hopefully that'll change, but we're working on it.
Yeah, I was reminded in talking to Kelly about this last year when we debated, any amenities that could be accommodated with lifeguards, that it's a certification issue. And at the time, they weren't even certifying anybody. So yeah, it's going to take a while to get back to normal, but it'll be wonderful to have the pool open. All right. And am I missing a commission? How about any other staff updates? Do you want to, if you feel the need to give us an update from EMS, Darren, or?
This is Councilman Moyer. I got a good news. I'll just interrupt here for a second.
Please.
I just want to let the public know that starting June 4th, Music Under the Bridge is going to happen. I've gotten a lot of questions on that, so I just want to make sure that we get that out there. That's it for me.
That's great news. Yes, thank you, Dean. The cards have been sitting on our counter at the office, and it's wonderful. It's a very full array of programming, so that will be terrific. A much welcome return to summer, as we like to see it. Any other good news, or do we have any other staff report that you feel we should have? I know Caroline has had some listening sessions with public safety, and she can give that update too. All right, Caroline, if you'd like to give us your administrator's report.
Yeah, well, I know we're in a rush today, so I did include the administrator's report as an attachment. And I think of just some highlights. I think we're in the running for federal funds and we'll find out more. And then we're looking on guidance from the U.S. Treasury to know how to spend approximately $280,000 that we might get through the rescue plan funds, and kind of anticipating that. For me, of note of the Port Authority, that there does seem to be debate about paying for city staff, but it was narrowly approved. I would recommend maybe a quarterly billing or a 6-month billing, just, because I feel like it was settled. So maybe it makes sense to just do a quarterly billing of a staff time. And I also heard some debate about whether or not we try to create a pool of $500,000 to wait for a major employer or project to come along, or do we try to start organizing some near-term projects and loan programs to get the funds out? They have about a balance of $343,000. Yesterday, I had a listening session with the ambulance volunteers and staff. And what I learned from that session is definitely there's probably just kind of the way it is to try to find volunteers for EMS has changed. It's more difficult than it was maybe 15, 20 years ago. That has created a need for more full-time staff, but there's definitely some things that I'll be continuing to look at with that, just in terms of trying to sustainably finance it. And so I think we are hoping to have a joint special meeting of City Council and the Port Authority on Tuesday, May 18th at 7 p.m. That is also in the report.
And the purpose of that is, of course, an update from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We look forward to that. I wish we were in a space to have a big public meeting where we could all be together. But I think that update is timely and important, so we don't want to delay having that communication with the Corps. Any other committee report or good news that I may have squashed with my eagerness to get us through this agenda? All right. We do not have a public hearing tonight. Our first item of general business is our addressing the appeal of the Board of Adjustments decision on the variance for 227 Coffee Mill Drive. We have a very thorough memo from staff. As you probably recall from our April meeting, we were met by the applicant with a request to help to understand the hardship that they are facing. That hardship has been articulated in the staff's report with regard to a variety of findings. We have a finding related to topography, which causes practical, I skipped one. Finding related to the setback, which would require slopes in excess of 10%, which is not safe for winter icing conditions. We have a finding related to raising the floor elevation, reducing the driveway slope, requires steep fill slopes, which may be difficult to maintain and have risk of erosion. A finding was clarified related to the topography causing practical difficulty and potentially being a safety issue for fill slope, related to fill slope. We have a finding about the lot shape impacted by the adjoining golf course and the topographical issues in placing a garage outside of the setback, which is unique to this property. And finding related to the applicant not making an economic-based argument due to topography being the main practical difficulty. And an assessment of, I should say, an observation of nearby properties, accessory structures close to the road may not necessarily be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other property in the neighborhood. Staff wasn't able to find examples in the neighborhood where an accessory structure to a principal structure is closer to the road than 30 feet. And on face value, an accessory structure such as that proposed may not alter the essential character of the locality. There are situations or contexts where an almost 1,000 square foot garage may not adequately address the question. So staff did not see the proposal as altering the essential locality or causing issue to the public or nearby properties. There was also a finding related to the accessory garage not being expected to be a detriment to adjacent properties or the public. A finding where the applicant has demonstrated a clear case of practical difficulty, such that the 10-foot and 1-inch variance to avoid topographical issues may constitute a minimally necessary variance, which would make the reasonable use of the property. There's a element of the order of the Board of Adjustment granting a variance which shall be valid for a period of no longer than 6 months from the date of the order. So this would remain a requirement of the condition of approval. And then staff had some degree of conflict on finding the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the ordinance. The intent of the ordinance is to not allow accessory structures construed closer to the street than a residential home or its principal structure. So the variance, if granted, does not conform with the requirement in that it is 10 feet in front of the residence. However, the applicant has a clear practical difficulty and the garage is proposed to be set back as far as is reasonable and practical given topography limitations. So the staff gives the applicant the benefit of the doubt regarding that question. Staff also reviewed the comprehensive plan related to this proposal, and the property's land use is split between low density residential for most of the property and is in a location in question for the proposed garage identified as open space. On face value, the proposed garage does not appear to be inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. An accessory structure to an existing house does not significantly change how the property is viewed within the comprehensive plan. So we have a recommendation from staff in favor of the applicant's appeal. It demonstrates practical difficulty to be legally granted the variance. So that recommendation includes the following conditions: that no order of the Board of Adjustment granting a variance shall be valid for a period longer than 6 months from the date of the order, unless the building permit is obtained within the period and the erection or alteration of a building is started within the period. Number 2, the variance is only for the proposal as described in staff reports in both the applicant's original request and appeal. The variance does not grant or imply approval for other aspects of the project, the subject property, or similar request. So with that, We have a resolution. Do we have a motion
I make the motion to approve it.
in favor? So we have a motion from Jeff Sulla in favor of the resolution to approve.
I'll second it.
We have a second from Tim Wallerick. Any discussion or comment or conditions?
No, my only comment is to thank Brian and Harry for the work on this. I think it's worthwhile, and I think the findings will reflect that. So thanks, guys.
Indeed, thanks. Anybody else have a comment, question, or condition applied to the?
Just a quick comment, walking out on the site, the proposed garage staked. Without the variance, the first floor of the garage is well above my head. So if you're standing on the side of the garage without the variance, the garage slab would be above your head. So just from a visual standpoint, the practical difficulty is apparent looking at it. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Anything further?
Yeah, I visited the site and there are some wooden stakes pounded in there. And I pulled a tape off from the power line, which is not an absolute, but it kind of gives you an idea. And I couldn't get those stakes to line up with the 20-foot plus the setback of 33 feet. So I would just want to caution the landowner to make sure that he's got the builder or somebody to verify the exact location of the 20-foot setback line.
Thank you. Anything further? We have a motion and a second. We can entertain a roll vote.
Woodley,
Yes.
Sulla,
Yes.
Falcon,
Yes.
Friedmeier,
Yes.
Moyer,
Yes.
Walrick,
Yes.
Durant.
Yes. All right. This is where my agenda gets weird here. So now we have our draft National Eagle Center and City of Wabasha Development Agreement. Before you, I urge you to bring that document up. We'll be looking at it in detail. I'm gonna just frame this issue for a minute as I did in my comments at the beginning of the meeting, and then I'll let Caroline also comment if she desires. And we also have Mike Flaherty here with regards to some of the language that has been outlined by council. And I think there may be some question related to some of the detail. This again, you probably recall we've had iterative updates from National Eagle Center leadership about how this project was originally intended to be funded with bond monies, what the actual bond allocation amounted to, how that was allocated into project costs in what we've sort of thought of as the city's component, as well as the Eagle Center's component. Sorry, I'm getting feedback. We have been really well partnered with an organization that is not only understands the public benefit of this project, but has frankly been willing to prioritize the public benefit of this project insofar as what we have called the city's elements. So I'm sure you're aware there is significant updates, including parking to Big Joe Alley, which is of course the alley behind the Main Street buildings, significant and very well developed concepts for what we refer to as the open space, including an amphitheater. We've heard from council that we'd like to see even more accessibility related to that parcel. And of course, the dockage, which I know there's a great deal of anticipation for. I'll just interject with a little update, which I was very pleased to receive, which I guess maybe was a more enthusiastic tone from the American Steamboat Company than I had understood there to be. They were very pleased in a recent meeting with Caroline and myself, as well as Lori Glomsky from the chamber, to hear that we're at this point in the process that we're turning those keys to the bonding money being released, and they would like to have conversation in the future. So while we perhaps scaled back our understanding of what the dockage would mean for large vessels, the large vessels are still interested. And I think that speaks to the economic impact of this project overall. I know there have been a couple of questions. If you've got questions, maybe you'll jot them down just so you don't forget anything. And then I'll sort of allow Caroline to speak to some degree to the process. We have in front of us the development agreement. we can take action on this tonight, I believe, given the level of questions that have arisen since the agenda was released. Certainly don't refrain from having those questions. Randy Eggenberger, who's chair of the board of the Eagle Center, and of course, Meg Gamage-Tucker are here to answer questions we might have, because there is a lot of detail. But I think we are in a position to take action tonight. We do need to make additional action, whether it is in a formal council special meeting or is in some degree facilitated by our administrator acting on behalf of the city on additional agreements. And that is our lease agreement and potentially a license agreement. And perhaps Mike will speak to that as we get into the nitty gritty of the agreement. Caroline, do you want to tee up any additional kind of framing for process?
Yes. The one thing I wanted to add is that I did receive some feedback from Brian Malm about some suggested recommendations to make sure that the way the exhibits are labeled are accurately reflected in the agreement. The term plaza has been used in the agreement, and it's really now called open space. And just ensuring that there's clarity, and this could be done in the lease agreement, that the Eagle Center is going to be managing the construction on the project with the city as a partner, but we will not be bidding the project out. So with those minor changes, I think with tonight's approval, I'm requesting authority to make minor changes to this that may be required, that don't change the intent or purpose or meaning of the agreement. Those came in last minute, and we do want that to be reflected, but they don't change, again, the meaning, purpose of the agreement. And then in speaking with the Eagle Center, it does seem that we're going to need a special meeting to be able to approve the lease agreement, or potentially offer that authority to myself. But again, I would say Mike knows more about that. So those are all my comments.
And
Mike, anything from you?
Yeah, I'll brief. I don't think you can do that. I think the city council, the city council has to approve the agreements, not a staff person. So, sorry.
You're good.
As it relates to the leases, I think the city council is going to have to approve those. I didn't realize the level of urgency. I spoke with the mayor today, and I've been working with Peter Coyle, the attorney for the National Eagle Center. We had a meeting last week on Wednesday, and he sent me, just the day before that meeting, he emailed me the development agreement in Word version so that I could mark it up. I'd say the process from my perspective is this. I reviewed the agreement compared to the 2017 development agreement, which is the original agreement that I received when this project started, and I reviewed it for those changes from that agreement. The version that I received was redlined, but not from that agreement. But it's not a long agreement, and it's not overly complicated. So I just reviewed it for what the agreement says now, and I didn't recommend any changes that were substantive changes. And the reason I didn't do that is I don't feel, I think that's something the city has to negotiate. I think that there's substantive changes, particularly with the phasing, when the legislature approved the alteration to the bonding funds and allowing it to be a phased project. That really required a new development agreement to be drafted, because it's a different project now somewhat. And so in terms of the accuracy of what's in the document, I read it, I raised questions as I saw questions, but largely I'm leaving that to city staff who's been involved with the project to know that it's accurate.
I can say we did take action on that phasing language. That was an actual action voted upon by council, voted and approved by council. I had to kind of revisit our steps along the process here, because it's been, the project has developed, and the financial planning for it has developed since the bond actually has been awarded.
Yeah,
I want to make sure with Mike, regards to Mike's point, that the city needs to negotiate the terms. That I'm going to go around the room. I'm seeing Craig and Tim first, just so you know, and then John, and and then Jeff, and then Brian, and then Dean. Just to make sure that if there are terms that are not understood to you yet, or that you feel need to be perhaps not articulated in the development agreement, but a part of the lease agreement. And I think that caused some confusion in 2017. I remember there being, in viewing that, recording that meeting, there was discussion about the development agreement that was really lease agreement terms. So we do have another agreement to deal with, and I'll just leave it at that. But Craig, I know you had some questions to me, and I hope I answered those. But if anything further that you'd like to discuss, or
Well, so Mayor, actually,
yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I think there might be some confusion here because the project has changed so much. The last thing I did want to make sure everybody understands is that there's going to be multiple lease agreements now. So, and this is spelled out in the agreement, but if you'd have to read it carefully to catch this, that there's going to be a lease of the current Eagle Center facility. And currently we have a lease. That lease will be amended and superseded by a new lease for at least 30 years to comply with the bonding legislation. But then there's going to be a second lease, which is a different lease because it will be a lease from the Eagle Center to the city. And that relates to the Main Street properties across the alley. So there'll be two leases, one for the city granting the Eagle Center a lease, and then there'll be a second lease for the Eagle Center granting the city a lease. And the reason that is happening is because the city has to have a quote ownership interest to get the bonding funds.
Mm-hmm.
Those are publicly dedicated money. So they define that as a lease of at least 30 years, a long-term easement, or fee title ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And there's financial reasons that the Eagle Center wants to do that. It's fine to do it that way, but that's requiring us to have two separate leases.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the last thing is when the city will receive a lease on those Main Street properties. Obviously, it's being leased to us, but we don't want to maintain it. So there'll be a third document that Peter and I are going to work on, and we haven't started working on yet, called probably a use and maintenance agreement, where the city will essentially hire the Eagle Center for a contemporaneous term equal to the term that's in that lease, 30 years or whatever, to use and maintain the facility, the Main Street buildings, for the purposes of the Eagle Center charter. So there's those three agreements, and then there's a fourth agreement, the license agreement. And the license agreement, so there's a lot going on here. It's complicated. I mean, originally, backing up, when this project first started, just so we're all clear, there was going to be one lease agreement. The Eagle Center was going to sell the properties to the city. The city was going to redefine the leased premises as to be the whole thing. And we'd have one lease agreement from the city to the Eagle Center. Now we've got two lease agreements, a use and maintenance agreement, and a license agreement. So we went from one agreement to four agreements. But that, if anybody has any questions about that, I think it's just easier to have me just kind of bullet point explain that rather than read the agreement. And so then the license agreement is section 5.1 of the agreement, of the development agreement. Basically, it says that the city, as a condition of the lease approval, will have to grant a license. The city will license what I'll call the amphitheater space, but is called the open spaces in the agreement, which is the outdoor improvements that are adjacent to the Eagle Center. So there'll be a license and the reason it's a license and not a lease, it could be a lease, but the reason I think it's a license, and I agree with this, is that the city will retain some ability to use that space. It won't be exclusively for Eagle Center control, like the museum is exclusively for Eagle Center control. The city doesn't have any right to use that. And the Main Street properties are going to be exclusively to be used and maintained by the Eagle Center. The city won't have any rights or obligations to do that. But that amphitheater space is a license because it's going to be mixed use, I guess. So it's split use between the city and NEC. So, all right, that's just the overview. If anybody has any questions about that, let me know.
So thanks. That kind of clears things up. I had a discussion with John and with Emily on a number of questions, and thanks to them for clearing that up. But yeah, the thing that I had left was the open space. Can city people be able to use the open space? Can citizens are just strolling walk through the open space? Is there any kind of restrictions? And if that can be spelled out in the license That's fine.
Yes, so the license agreement, so section 5.1, I think a lot of the confusion came, and I read this and I understood it, but I can see how you would read this to be, the word exclusive is in that paragraph.